Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Congresswoman, Chairwoman Karen Bass, for bringing this bill before us. Some of you know that I worked as a 911 dispatcher for 17 and a half years. During that time, I answered thousands of calls from victims of crime. I was the calming voice at the other end of that line for people during their most vulnerable moments, reassuring them that it would be okay, telling them help is on the way, telling them the police would be there soon to help them, to protect them. So you can imagine the disgust that I felt at seeing someone in that same position of trust that I dispatched thousands of times before, time and time again, an officer of the peace who would use their authority to target, to maim, to murder the very people that they swore to protect. It's inconceivable. Yet, there it is in plain view, captured on video. And we have to relive those very painful moments, those incidents over and over again on social media and in the news. I had to force myself to watch that video. When Mr. Floyd died for his mom, he didn't call his mom. He was calling me because I'm a mom too. He activated every woman across America to look in the mirror and to ask the question, is this the best that we could do? Is this the definition of protect and serve? Anyone who thinks that George Floyd's death was an isolated incident is ignoring the fact that before George Floyd, there was Breonna Taylor. And before Breonna, there was Ahmaud Arbery. And before him, it was some other mourning mother's child in plain view for all of us to witness over and over and over again. Anyone who claims that this is just a few bad apples is ignoring the root cause of the problem. The fact that in the short time since George Floyd's murder, Rayshard Brooks, another unarmed Black man, was killed by an officer sworn to protect us. To say that this is completely unacceptable falls short of just how egregious and dire the situation is. Police officers must be held accountable to the same laws that they enforce, period. Black Americans, Brown Americans must feel safe from discriminatory policing. They need to be safe from this horrible behavior. So the bill that we are discussing today, the Justice in Policing Act, is long overdue and urgently needed to start addressing systemic racism in law enforcement. It reforms qualified immunity so anyone who faces discriminatory policing or excessive force has an avenue for recourse. Has to be skin in the game for everyone. And officers are victims of crime too. I can share with you many stories of officers, one-man units, stopping a carload of gang members and holding them at gunpoint while backup was long ways away. This bill ensures that everyone is thinking about human life and the value of human life. It creates a national police misconduct registry to track officer misconduct. This is something that I had requested of the committee. And it improves training and practices to make sure officers are properly prepared for the situations we ask them to address and much more. Justice for the Black and Brown communities who face discrimination and racism since this nation's founding starts with the systemic reforms in this bill. It's not going to end there. We know that. We need to be clear-eyed about the extent of this threat, which is why I'm asking for the 2006 FBI report on white supremacists infiltrating law enforcement. That report needs to be made public and brought up to date. If the FBI was learning about white supremacist infiltration 14 years ago, those individuals could hold top-ranking positions now. They are the supervisors now. They are the trainers. They are the captains. They are the chiefs of police. We need to know that. Just this past Monday, the Department of Justice announced charges against a U.S. Army soldier accused of planning an attack on his own U.S. Army unit by sending sensitive details about their location and security to a neo-Nazi and radically motivated violent extremist group. So this threat is real, and it must be rooted out. And we can't forget to address a wound that cuts back for generations. We must invest in programs that help communities of color advance right now. You know, in 2000, when I was first elected to the local city council in my city, I began to address those issues for our young people. When I learned that the Pomona City Council had passed a law banning skateboarding, as an example, from the Civic Center, because it was a liability problem for them, but they gave no other recourse for the youth in our community to skateboard safely. I focused and over 2 years saved enough money to build a skate park. But that wasn't enough. Our teens needed a teen center, a place where they with a couch and maybe a snack that could be utilized after school with computers and assistants to help them do their homework and focus on other things. We had a very high teen suicide rate in my home city at the time. And high school graduations were not very, high. It was a pipeline to our prison system. That's why those programs were a priority. I understood that having a man with a gun and uniform in every corner of our city wasn't public safety. And our officers understood that that wasn't public safety, and they demanded more too. From equity and education, to access to healthcare, to fair housing practices. The true test of this moment is about recognizing that these are all forms of discrimination and violence too. We can't end with these injustices and expect to succeed with just one bill. We have to end them all. We have to address all of it. I commend my colleagues on the Judiciary Committee for getting us this far. I look forward to supporting this bill. I do have a question for Representative Bass, and that is, have you or the Black Caucus reached out to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, to seek their assistance in helping us train the next generation of police officers? You see, I have a 5-year-old at home who wants to be a police officer, but I want him to be the good guy.